We've heard countless tips on how to impress women. Flowery compliments, sweet gestures, even memorized tricks. But have you ever asked yourself, why is it that the more some men try, the more distant women become? Picture a man. He's not tall, not flashy, and he doesn't say much. Yet with one sentence, calm, clear, and sincere, the woman across from him stops. Not because the words are smooth, but because they awaken something deeply real within her. The feeling of being seen, understood, and valued. In this video, we'll explore phrases that seem simple, but hold astonishing inner power. These are not flirting hacks. They are reflections of a grounded, composed way of life, where a man seeks no validation from others, but finds it within himself. 1. You have a unique way about you. I like that. In interactions between men and women, compliments from men often fall into cliché. You're beautiful. I love your outfit. Or, you have a great smile. While pleasant, such remarks tend to be superficial and rarely strike emotional depth. In contrast, when a man says, "You have a unique way about you, and I truly appreciate that," the message shifts from flattery to the acknowledgement of identity. One of the deepest psychological needs in any human being, especially women. Women do not seek validation of appearance alone. They long to be seen, not generically, but as the distinct, irreplaceable individuals they are. Saying she has a unique way implies that you perceive more than a type, a pattern, or an obvious trait. You've witnessed a combination, a rare fusion of personality, expression, thought, and presence. Perhaps it's her cool-toned voice, softened by careful word choices, or her calm gaze amidst chaos, or simply the way she treats the vulnerable. Whatever it is, the power of this statement lies in having noticed what others didn't, and saying so. Unlike conventional praise, which targets the fleeting and the visible, this kind of statement cuts to essence, what defines the self beneath the surface. It is not flirtation in its usual form. It is reflection of the speaker's depth. Such words emerge only when a man pays attention, truly sees, and recognizes something singular. It cannot be faked, memorized, or mass-produced. It requires presence, a state of being fully here, to witness someone not as we wish them to be, but as they truly are. The structure of the phrase also carries weight, intimate without intrusion. I like that does not judge by external standards. It's a soft, honest offering of personal resonance. It leaves space for the listener to feel unmeasured, ungraded, to feel simply seen, for their truth. Psychologically, the recognition of individual identity evokes safety and deep resonance, elevating levels of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Women, wired for emotional depth and connection, respond profoundly to feeling understood, not viewed. And herein lies the divide between a casual compliment and one that touches the soul. When a woman senses that someone has truly seen her, not the curated self, but the unconscious truth, she begins to open, to trust, and to form deeper bonds. Crucially, identity recognition cannot stem from an intent to impress. If the statement is used as a tool to elicit emotion, it loses all power and may backfire. But when it arises from stillness, from observation without agenda, it becomes a natural expression of masculine presence, something no pickup tactic can replicate. Sincere acknowledgement holds far more power than hollow praise. And that's why one simple line can echo long in a woman's mind. In modern discourse, attention is fragmented, by phones, by social media, by false expectations of how connection should happen. In this context, the ability to create true emotional resonance through still attention has become a rare, potent skill. True attention isn't surface-level focus. It's the ability to be fully in a moment, to observe another not just with the eyes, but with mindful presence. When a man says, "You have a unique way about you, and I truly appreciate that," its power lies not merely in its words, but in the state of attention from which it's spoken. No rush, no urge to entertain, just purposeful stillness, a presence that allows the listener to feel fully received, untouched by judgment or mental noise. Unlike tactical or rehearsed compliments, still attention generates a different kind of connection. In this state, a man isn't trying to communicate in the technical sense. He is being present, a concept central to both psychology and Stoic thought. When a woman feels she can speak without interruption, express without correction, and be without needing to impress, a natural connection forms, one that needs no clever technique. Behavioral psychology shows that we remember how people made us feel more than what they said. A conversation that fosters emotional safety, that offers undivided listening, imprints deeply in memory. That's why a simple sentence, when spoken from still attention, can create a profound sense of being known, something no scripted compliment can achieve. Controlled silence is another crucial part of attention. While many try to fill space with speech, the man who knows when to stay silent delivers a stronger message. I don't need to speak to prove myself. I am here, fully. That silence offers room for the woman to unfold, without interruption, adjustment, or analysis. It becomes an emotional sanctuary where real connection is born, free of pressure. It is undeniable that women, both biologically and psychologically, perceive subtle emotional cues with great acuity. They sense tone, breath, gaze, and the energy a man brings. In the stillness of true attention, all these nonverbal signals adjust naturally to reflect presence. And that, not the words, is what creates connection. In the end, when a man can offer a quiet space alive with awareness, where a woman feels she can simply be, emotional connection arises not from linguistic skill, but from the depth of presence. The phrase, "You have a unique way about you, and I truly appreciate that," is only the surface of a deeper communication, one where presence, calm, and non-demand become the rarest and most magnetic offering. 2. That's what I like most about you. In most relationships, compliments serve as basic tools of affection or rapport building. Yet, many of them remain surface level, focused on appearance, fashion, or obvious traits. While common, they rarely foster real emotional depth. By contrast, when a man says to a woman, "That's what I like most about you," he's not just complimenting, he's identifying and honoring a core inner value. The strength of this statement lies not in poetic phrasing, but in deliberate selection. Choosing "what I like most" implies you've noticed many things, looked deeply, and decided that this one trait, perhaps compassion, resilience, passion, or integrity, is the essence that truly moved you. This demands perceptive awareness, not just of behavior, but of layered emotion, action, and values expressed through ordinary moments. Psychologically, deep, unspecific acknowledgement helps the other feel unmeasured by social norms. While remarks like, "You're beautiful," or "I love your hair," may offer momentary pleasure, they fold or even reduce the listener to visual standards. In contrast, saying, "I admire how you always look out for others, even when no one's watching," reveals a deeper level of observation and connection. It shows that you've seen moral fiber, consistent kindness, things few take time to notice, let alone value. A core trait carries longevity, looks fade, style changes, but values, honesty, empathy, responsibility, passion, tend to endure. When a woman realizes that the man before her is drawn not to the ephemeral, but to the very foundation of her being, a sense of being truly understood arises. And that, in turn, invites trust, the backbone of any authentic relationship. Equally important is how the message is delivered. When such recognition is offered sincerely, in a quiet, non-performative moment, its impact is profound. It becomes an emotional anchor, a place she can return to mentally whenever she needs to remember her worth. That sense of value does not come from admiration, but from being rightly seen. From the lens of interpersonal connection, identifying and honoring core values signals emotional maturity. The speaker no longer seeks approval or influence, but brings a conscious awareness of the other's essence. The words transcend small talk and become a deep offering, a recognition of the soul behind the relationship. In sum, when a man identifies and articulates appreciation for a core trait in a woman, he is not merely admiring. He's saying, "I see you, not the surface, but the real person within." And this is what creates lasting connection. One of humanity's deepest needs in any relationship is emotional safety. When one feels they can be themselves without judgment, they naturally open up, share more, and build deeper bonds. This is especially true in male-female dynamics. Research in psychology affirms that women often value emotional connection above all else. When a man makes a woman feel truly heard, understood, and recognized at the spiritual level, he creates not just attraction, but a lasting resonance. When a man says, "That's what I like most about you," and the remark is not aimed at looks or performance, but at inner traits like kindness, empathy, perseverance, or insight, he sends a signal of safety. Safety not in the physical sense, but in the psychological space, where she no longer needs to perform, polish, or always be interesting. She can simply be, and that's enough. Emotional safety is the foundation of any meaningful relationship. When women sense they are valued not for changeable attributes, but for enduring internal truths, they respond with openness and trust. Trust is not built by promise, but by the quiet realization that the man before her does not seek perfection, but truth. In that context, the phrase, "That's what I like most about you," becomes not a compliment, but an act of empathy. One key factor is the alignment between the words and the man's inner state. If the words emerge from genuine presence, with calm eyes, steady tone, and no trace of manipulation or performance, they naturally foster a space of safe communication. In that space, even a woman's most vulnerable parts feel allowed to exist without fear. This is one of the most powerful expressions of spiritual connection. Spiritual connection, unlike physical attraction which may fade, is a more durable bond. It's built on honest moments, unhurried conversation, and the rare instances when one sees another's essence without wishing to alter it. When a woman feels her inner goodness is not only recognized but deeply valued, she tends to stay, not because he speaks well, but because he sees clearly. Attachment theory confirms that emotional safety is essential for meaningful bonds. When one does not feel threatened, judged, or coerced, they behave more generously, supportively, and grow with the other. A well-timed acknowledgement that celebrates an inner virtue over an external trait is the first step in building that emotional sanctuary. In the end, the statement, "That's what I like most about you," when paired with keen observation and a grounded presence, carries more weight than any clever line. It awakens in the listener a feeling of being wholly accepted, and from there opens the door to a spiritual bond strong enough to carry any enduring relationship. 3. There's something about the way you think that I really respect. In most cross-gender conversations, compliments about appearance are often used as quick tools to spark connection or friendliness. Yet, the true value of a compliment lies in its depth and the sincerity behind it. When a man expresses respect for the way a woman thinks, he moves beyond the surface. It's no longer a casual remark. It becomes a recognition of her intellectual depth, a quality invisible to the eye, but central to her identity and character. Intelligence isn't limited to academic prowess. It encompasses critical thinking, independent reasoning, intuitive insight, creative problem-solving, and emotional depth. When a woman demonstrates these through her questions, her perspectives, or her analysis, it speaks to a life shaped by reflection, discipline, and inner strength. For a man to genuinely notice this and speak his admiration is not only a form of connection, it affirms that intellect is one of the most lasting and compelling forms of beauty. Psychologically, humans form deeper bonds with those who recognize them at a meaningful level. For women, to be seen, not only for grace or beauty, but for the way they think, affirms their inner worth and strengthens self-esteem. The phrase, "There's something about the way you think that I really respect," signals that she's not merely being heard. Her logic, values, and worldview are being seen. It is a pure expression of respect, the foundation of any meaningful relationship. Intellect also plays a critical role in one's capacity to grow within a lasting relationship. People with deep thought tend to be reflective, growth-oriented, and capable of long-range insight. When a man acknowledges this in a woman, he's not complimenting a trait. He's honoring a core capacity for mutual understanding. In a world that often prizes fleeting attraction or entertainment, attention to intellect becomes rare and therefore priceless. Moreover, to praise intellect is to display humility and maturity. The man steps back from being the center of the conversation. He becomes a student, open to new views, appreciating difference, and expanding his own mind. In such an environment, a woman doesn't have to dilute her truth or dim her light for comfort's sake. Here, authenticity and intellect are not just welcome, they are essential. In short, recognizing intellect as attractive doesn't just elevate a relationship, it transforms it. A compliment aimed at thought reflects not just what she offers, but the depth of the man who sees it. In a culture where conversations are often driven by haste, bias, or control, a man who pauses to honor a woman's thinking creates a radically different space. This space is no longer about right answers, pleasing responses, or acceptable performance. It becomes a safe haven where unfiltered thought is free to speak, uninterrupted and unjudged. When a woman hears sincere recognition of her intellect, especially in the form of genuine respect, she receives a clear signal. Her voice, perspective, and mental clarity aren't just accepted, they are encouraged. This has powerful psychological impact. It affirms the fundamental human need to be seen, not for output, but for essence. Within such a space, dialogue shifts from subtle ego battles to an exchange between two independent minds. The man, by listening with presence, meeting her gaze without distraction, and responding with reverence, creates an atmosphere where she feels safe to open up. Safety here is not just about avoiding attack, but about knowing that her intelligence, however bold or nuanced, is valued. Encouraging authentic thought has a ripple effect. A woman invited to share her depth begins to ask bigger questions, voice deeper truths, and enrich the quality of conversation. Discussions transcend small talk, moving toward faith, life experience, love, justice, compassion, and purpose. This is when connection evolves from emotional spark to intellectual bond, where both people learn from one another. Just as importantly, a man who is not threatened by a woman's intellect, but instead nurtures it, establishes a relationship not built on dominance, but on mutual respect. In such a relationship, a woman need not shrink to maintain harmony, nor feign ignorance to appear approachable. She is free to rise to her full cognitive potential, with a man who supports, not suppresses, her growth. From a sociological view, relationships built on intellectual equality tend to last longer and offer greater satisfaction. Each person becomes not just a romantic partner, but a mirror to the other's mind and values. When a woman feels her intellect is seen and cherished, she naturally invests more trust, time, and emotion, not because of fleeting romance, but because of enduring respect. To conclude, honoring a woman's thinking is not just a compliment, it is the creation of space, a space where intellect needs no armor, no softening, no disguise. It is a place where true thought is welcomed and allowed to shine, an essential condition for any relationship that seeks to grow in depth and in truth. 4. I am the flame, not the moth. In today's world, the craving for attention and validation has become widespread. Social media, mass culture, and external ideals have driven many to gauge self-worth by others' reactions. They begin to live like moths, drawn to the nearest glow of approval, seeking outside applause to feel worthy. In this setting, the phrase, "I am the flame, not the moth," becomes a bold counter-declaration. It asserts a different rule of life: to live from within, free from external validation, and to be the center of one's own being. The flame symbolizes inner energy, light that comes from within, and depends on no external source to burn. The moth chases brightness it cannot control. The flame simply burns, without seeking, without chasing, without being drawn to anyone. This is more than metaphor. It's a profound shift in orientation, from dependency to self-generated purpose. In Stoic thought, autonomous identity means grounding oneself in an internal compass, where values, standards, and self-perception remain intact despite external forces. When a man says, "I am the flame," he means he has outgrown the need for others' approval. His worth doesn't hinge on whether others like, admire, or are drawn to him. This self-governance is the source of real strength, magnetic, not manipulative. Modern psychology echoes this. Those with an internal locus of control exhibit greater confidence, remain less reactive to praise or rejection, and make choices based on inner values, not external expectation. In social spaces, such people don't demand attention. They are attention. Like a flame in the dark, they shine without asking to be seen. Another dimension of this self-command is emotional non-reactivity. Where many collapse under neglect or silence, the grounded man understands that others' indifference doesn't diminish his worth. He does not let others' emotions define his own. This is emotional discipline, a cornerstone of psychological stability and value-driven behavior. Self-possession, however, is not isolation. The Stoic man does not reject connection. He simply does not barter his values for affection. He can love, share, and be moved without becoming dependent. His allure comes from inner fullness, not performance. He doesn't try to impress, for it is his lack of need to impress that makes him irresistible. In sum, "I am the flame, not the moth," is a distilled declaration of sovereign living. It's not merely a refusal to chase attention, but the act of cultivating one's own fire and standing firm in its heat. The man who says this seeks no confirmation, because he has already affirmed himself. And in a world of noise and distraction, it is the self-anchored who truly stand out, not because they try, but because they are. In relationships, especially between men and women, attraction is often linked to outward traits, looks, charm, charisma. Yet another kind of magnetism, quiet and profound, emerges from inner calm and groundedness. It doesn't shout, but it's unmistakable. It's the kind of presence that stills a room and whose absence leaves a palpable void. The flame, in this metaphor, does not move, does not reach. It simply burns, and in doing so, gives light and warmth. Likewise, the grounded man doesn't seek to entertain or attract. He doesn't strive to please or perform. He does not react to flattery or rejection. His steadiness, paired with psychological strength, creates an energy that invites curiosity, trust, and respect. This calm is not emotional suppression, but conscious awareness and regulation. The tranquil man is not numb. He feels, but is not ruled by what he feels. He can be angry without losing control, grieve without falling apart, love without losing himself. This makes him an emotional anchor, especially for women who crave a stable emotional counterpart. Psychology shows we are drawn to those who master themselves. Studies reveal that composure during stress is often rated more attractive than beauty or charm. Calm signals emotional maturity, and in any long-term bond, maturity is what sustains and strengthens. Stillness also creates emotional space. When a man doesn't dominate the conversation or fill every silence, he gives room for others to hear themselves. This space allows a woman to express freely, without pressure to perform or entertain. In this way, the tranquil man builds intimacy, not by leading loudly, but by allowing both to fully show up. Attraction born of inner stability also shows an alignment between word and deed. He speaks little, but with weight. His actions match his intentions. He isn't swayed by circumstance or sudden whims. This consistency builds trust, which, according to research, is a primary factor in long-term partner selection. In the end, while many seek to stand out through noise, the Stoic man's power lies in presence and poise. He does not chase the spotlight because he is the source of light, and in that silent strength, he becomes compelling, not through performance, but through being, a quiet, undeniable force that no display can substitute. 5. I like women who know what they want. In modern relationships, many people tend to fall into a pattern of seeking approval from the other. This often leads to adjusting behavior, changing opinions, or temporarily setting aside personal needs to meet someone else's expectations. Yet such dynamics gradually erode the sense of self, blurring the line between who I am and who I must become to be liked. In that context, the phrase, "I like women who know what they want," is more than a compliment. It is a declaration of the speaker's philosophy of living. Unlike casual flattery or indulgent praise, this statement signals that the man holds himself to deliberate standards, and he values others who do the same. It reveals a firm stance. Instead of seeking validation, he considers whether the other aligns with his worldview, values, and principles. This is not about establishing dominance, but compatibility. A healthy relationship does not begin with the desperation to be accepted. It begins when two people can recognize and respect each other's boundaries. Affirming personal standards does not require rigidity or control. In reality, it often shows up in subtler ways, in how he remains calm when facing differences, how he declines what doesn't align without need for justification, and how he admires those with a clear direction in life. When a man says he appreciates women who know what they want, he's saying more about himself, that he values clarity of purpose, long-term commitment, and decisions made through reason and integrity, not fleeting emotion or societal pressure. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, people are drawn to those who demonstrate autonomy and clarity. A person need not be flashy or affluent. If they emit the energy of stability and decisiveness, they are inherently compelling. The same is true for a woman. When she shows she knows what matters, what is worthy and what is not, she becomes not merely attractive, but grounding, clear, and mature, the very pillars of a sustainable relationship. A man with personal standards also understands that not everyone is meant for him, and that's perfectly fine. When he says he admires women who know what they want, he's positioning himself within his own worldview, not someone willing to reshape himself for approval, but someone with enough self-respect and self-awareness to choose his companion with discernment. This shifts his role from applicant to evaluator, a position based not on manipulation, but on self-mastery. In this context, the phrase, "I like women who know what they want," becomes a filter. It carries a quiet message. I'm not drawn to aimlessness or pliability. Those who lack direction, who waver under external opinions, or who show inconsistency in thought and action, will instinctively sense misalignment. Meanwhile, those who live with purpose, who know their worth and don't require outside validation to feel whole, will feel seen because they recognize themselves in the words. Ultimately, the phrase, "I like women who know what they want," is an expression of principled living, of holding personal standards without dependence on external validation. Rather than seeking approval in a relationship, the man who speaks it affirms his inner position, that he needs no one to justify his worth, and that choosing a partner begins with clarity, not lack. In interpersonal psychology, language is not merely communication, it is activation. When a man says, "I like women who know what they want," the words may not call for direct change, but they often spark a process of inner reckoning in the listener. This response takes place in a deep cognitive space where the individual begins to ask, do I truly know what I want? Do my choices reflect my core values? Am I living with intention or just reacting to circumstance? This is known as indirect feedback, where one is not directly challenged but prompted to self-reflect by an open-ended message. In male-female dynamics, this is particularly effective because it is non-threatening, non-judgmental, yet can lead to quiet but profound shifts in self-perception. The message does not command, does not demand change, but it holds up a mirror that invites self-inquiry. When a woman hears this, especially from a man she respects, she may internalize it as a standard she wants to align with or reference to measure herself against. This response is not driven by external pressure, but by an inner desire to become clearer, stronger, and more authentic in what she truly seeks. The reflection may be quiet, but deep, shaping how she chooses in future interactions, in relationships, in career, or personal development. The power of indirect feedback is especially strong when it comes from calm, unforced presence. The man doesn't use the statement to critique or compel. He simply voices a truth, that he values direction. The absence of pressure but clarity of message is one of the most effective ways to foster growth from within. Rather than resistance, the listener feels invited, a quiet, intrinsic form of motivation, far more sustainable than any external push. This reflective response also affects how a woman presents herself in the relationship. As she begins to clarify what she truly wants, she becomes more selective in communication, more defined in her boundaries, and less tolerant of ambiguity. This benefits not only herself, but also the relationship, now guided by mutual clarity and respect, rather than fleeting emotion or vague expectation. At the same time, this process allows her to reassess her compatibility with the man who spoke the words. She may ask herself, am I aligned with him? Am I living in a way that he respects? These questions, though they need no immediate answer, influence her future choices. If she realizes she isn't yet clear and wishes to be, then that single phrase has become a catalyst for growth, a simple sentence, yielding real evolution. In summary, the statement, "I like women who know what they want," carries a message of orientation. It doesn't ask for change, yet it sparks a process of inner examination and refinement. Instead of passively receiving, the listener actively evaluates herself and the relationship. This is a prime example of how language can transcend surface communication and become an instrument of awakened awareness, not through pressure, but through presence. 6. You don't have to try so hard with me. In human relationships, especially between men and women in today's world, the pressure to perform is often present, whether overt or subtle. Women, shaped by social norms, media, and cultural expectations, are frequently taught to maintain a perfect image, to be attractive, graceful, emotionally balanced, well-mannered, and ever composed. These expectations, whether external or internalized, lead many to feel they must carry a burden whenever entering a new relationship. That's why, when a man says, "You don't have to try so hard with me," he's doing more than offering comfort. He's lifting the invisible weight of perfection that she may be carrying. The statement, though simple, conveys a profound message. In this space between us, authenticity is valued over performance. Natural presence matters more than effort to impress. Above all, She need not become anyone else to be seen or connected with. When a woman feels accepted in her imperfect state, a quiet emotional shift occurs. Her defenses begin to lower, and the layers she uses to protect her image or shield her most vulnerable parts become unnecessary. She breathes more freely, speaks more slowly, stops over-editing every sentence, and slowly, a more natural version of herself begins to emerge, not shaped by the desire to please, but by the freedom to be. Communication psychology shows that authenticity not only builds closeness, it creates long-term comfort for both sides. When someone constantly strives to maintain an image or play a role, they eventually burn out, feel disconnected, and lose touch with their true self. Conversely, when they're encouraged to show up as they are, the relationship is built on trust and emotional sustainability. Encouraging authenticity is not merely about words, it's about the man's presence. When he doesn't overreact to raw emotion, doesn't interrupt during difficult disclosures, doesn't rush to fix what she just needs to express, he creates a space where she can be herself without fear of judgment or rejection. This is the root of emotional safety, a non-negotiable foundation for any deep and lasting bond. Moreover, the phrase "you don't have to try so hard with me" acts as an invitation not to behave a certain way, but to let go, to unwind, to return to her natural state. It signals, here in this space, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence, as it is enough to begin something real. From that starting point, both can engage in true connection, free of tactics, free of expectations. In a world that often tells women they must perfect themselves to be worthy of love, a statement that allows them to ease off becomes a quiet remedy. It doesn't just release psychological pressure. It opens the path to genuine connection, where sincerity is valued more than polish, and the real person is more welcome than the ideal version. It is from that space that a real relationship begins, not built on what people try to become, but on who they already are. In human connection, especially between man and woman, non-judgmental presence is a foundational element for building trust and lasting emotional bonds. The phrase, "you don't have to try so hard with me," is not just reassurance. It is the manifestation of a communication style free from expectation, demand, or performance. When spoken calmly and sincerely, it opens a space where the woman feels she can exist exactly as she is, without fear of being critiqued or dismissed. One of the most common barriers to trust is the feeling of being judged. When someone senses they're being scrutinized for every word, gesture, or emotional response, they begin to retreat, build walls, and hide the parts of themselves that feel too exposed. The relationship, in turn, becomes shallow, cautious, and void of authenticity. But when someone feels they can be seen without surveillance, even in their messy, unrefined, or uncertain moments, they begin to open, to share more, and to build a foundation of trust. Non-judgmental presence is not just verbal. It is visible in the eyes, gestures, and listening posture. A man builds trust not by fixing or directing, but by sitting in silence, not interrupting, and not reacting too quickly. When he remains calm as she expresses insecurity, anger, or hesitation, he is silently telling her, "Every part of you belongs here." That's the first step toward true emotional safety, without which trust cannot grow. From a psychological perspective, Trust is not born from promises. It is born from the lived experience of being accepted during vulnerable moments. When a woman shares an unpolished truth, a fear, a doubt, a scar, and sees that the man remains, listens, and keeps his eyes soft and heart open, a deeper bond begins to form. It is in the space where there is no judgment that trust takes root, quietly but firmly. The phrase, "You don't have to try so hard with me," also helps relieve the pressure of early-stage performance. At the start of any relationship, both people try to show their best sides. But if the pressure to perform continues too long, it breeds exhaustion and superficiality. When a man invites his partner to let go, to stop performing, stop controlling every word, he's giving the relationship a chance to grow from what is true, not what is idealized. This absence of judgment also reflects respect for individual journeys. Rather than impose standards or expect someone to meet an abstract ideal, the man chooses to observe, accept, and walk alongside. He understands that each person develops at their own pace, has their own flaws, and carries their own values. In this spirit, the relationship becomes a shared space for growth, not a test or performance stage. In the end, non-judgmental presence doesn't just make people feel good in the moment. It lays the groundwork for durable trust and meaningful intimacy. When a woman feels she can be fully herself, no performance, no proof, and still be heard and held within the relationship, she begins to trust naturally. And from that trust, the deepest forms of connection, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, can take root and flourish. When I bring these phrases into my daily life, I don't see them as techniques for winning favor, but as expressions of an inner life that's been tempered, steady, thoughtful, and grounded in respectful perception. On my personal path, I was once the man seeking approval, always trying to say the right thing, striving to prove I was good enough to be loved. But over time, I came to see that real attractiveness isn't about impressing. It's about showing up with honesty and calm. When I tell someone, "You don't have to try so hard with me," I'm not flirting. I'm opening a space where authenticity is honored. And when I say, "I really admire the way you think," it's not shallow praise. It's the recognition of intellect. These words began to carry real weight only when I stopped using them to make someone like me and began speaking them as a natural part of how I relate, reflecting a man who has chosen to live by standards, who governs himself, and who remains unmoved by rejection or surface-level attention. Stoicism taught me this: you don't need to become someone who fits the crowd. You only need to live in alignment with your values, at the right depth, in the right moment. The right people will recognize that, not because you proved anything, but because you were steady enough not to need to. Let your inner growth begin with the way you show up, calm, clear, and without seeking validation from anyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. And if you're truly ready to live like the flame, not chasing light, but being the source of it, then you're already far ahead. Keep going. But this time, not to pursue, only to become. See you in the next video.